How do you manage your time between academics and sports?
I always try and get on top of academics as fast as possible. There are times though where it's like you're so not involved, but like you're so busy with the sport and you're so focused on that specific sport that you sometimes get a little lackadaisical. But you try your best to keep on top of your academics as much as possible.
All right. Do you feel any stress when trying to do your work when getting home with the amount of time that you have?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, it's hard just because football was always in the way, and then I'd always watch film, and I'd always try and be on top of football, not worrying as much with academics, that should have been my priority. But now that football's over, it's going to be my top priority to get that stuff done.
Do you think your grades get impacted when being a part of sports? If so, negatively or positive?
I think it's a little bit of a mixture of both. I think negative, you sometimes don't have time to study, or you're so overtired from that sport where it like kind of drains you, and you just like get home and you fall asleep not even knowing, or not even like realizing what time it is, and then you wake up, you eat, shower, and go back to sleep. It's like, oh wait, I have homework, and then you're rushing in the morning or you're rushing late at night to do your work, and it kind of messes you up. But sometimes it positively impacts you by just being able to like understand that you gotta do time management, because that's what it's gonna be like in college.
All right. Thank you for your time.
No problem.
What did you say?
I got it, bro.
How do you manage your time between athletics and academics?
I'd say I'd probably manage my time between athletics and academics by just getting my work done when I can, just utilizing the time I have. So like in school, if I have like a free period, like community block or study hall, I'll just get all my work done then, so I don't have to worry about it later.
All right. Do you feel any stress when trying to do your work, like when you get home with the amount of time that you have, like after practice or something?
Definitely. Especially with football, because practice is like so much longer than like other sports. You don't have as much time to like get there and get it done. So.
And you live in like Chinatown, so it takes a little bit to get home.
A little bit, yeah.
Do you think your grades get impacted when being a part of sports? If so, like a negative or positive?
I'd say both negatively and positively, because like being on that like time restraint, you're not able to like put as much effort into your work. But yeah, at the same time, like when you do play sports, it like gets you in the right mindset and it gets you focused, so that also benefits you. So it goes like both ways.
So you think it's like, wait, after practice you just want to get the work done, right?
Yeah, so you're not really putting that like effort in, but yeah, at the same time, like you're still like in that mindset, like you're just at football, you're just working hard, so you're just like getting it done, and you're just like getting it over with basically. So.
All right, Jay Paul, thanks for your time. How do you manage your time between athletics and academics?
Probably manage my time most by getting work done when I'm able to. Like in school, we have like community, do the work then. If I during study hall, do work then. Then even like if a teacher gives you time during class, get all your work done then when you have time to do it. So it's not as much work you have to do when you get home during after like school, especially when you get out late for practice.
Do you feel any stress when trying to do your work, like when you get home with the amount of time that you have left?
Not really, because it's kind of like all my life I've always played sports, so it's always like been that way. So when you just gotta you have to do it, so you just gotta do it. You can't get that stressed out, because if you do, then it's just everything gets worse. You just gotta know like the time you have, manage it well, and you'll be fine.
Very inspirational. Do you think your grades are impacted when you're when you're a part of a sport? If so, negative or positive?
I think it does, because obviously you don't have as much time. So sometimes it might negatively affect it because you have practice, so you won't always have as much time to do all the work you need. But also it could positively affect it, because since you're on a sports team, you obviously have to keep your grades up and everything so that you can play.
All right. Thanks, Tommy Touchdown. Does athletics have a negative or positive effect on students' academics?
Well, I think playing athletics is a good gauge in managing time. When you're doing homework after school each day, you have to set up a good time schedule for yourselves. And usually the athletes do very well with their academics, because they know there is a minimum grade that they have to keep up in order to be eligible to play athletics.
How do you compare athletes' grades compared to non-athletes' grade? If so, is it a big difference?
To me, in the students that I teach, there really isn't a big difference, but I know the athletes work just as hard as non-athletes, and they put in just as much time as non-athletes in order to keep their GPA up, in order to be eligible.
Do you notice any stress that your players are experiencing with grades when doing sports?
My players on the girls basketball team, throughout the year, there is stressful times. There are important games which takes up a lot of their time in practice and when they go home, thinking and preparing themselves mentally. So yes, there is a lot of stress throughout the year for athletes, but I also think there's a lot of stress for non-athletes in order to have a good time frame and a good schedule to keep up their grades.
Does athletics have a negative or positive effect on student academics?
I think athletics always has a positive effect on student academic, because in order to be eligible to play, you have to be able to perform in the classroom. So you have to have both that academic balance as well as that social balance in athletics. So they go hand in hand.
Okay. Do you see any difference compared from athletes' grades compared to non-athletes' grades? If so, is it a big difference?
I got to be honest with you. There is a difference in non-athletic student grades than there are in athletic student grades. There comes a time when athletes tend to have they become mentally drained. So they really are. They're mentally drained, emotionally tired. So that physical aspect of the game and that mental aspect of the game does affect their academics. Whereas a traditional student, they don't have that emotional impact and that mental impact that kind of causes their grades to kind of waver. But on the other hand, they also may have some emotional issues going on in their lives, and that in itself can also impact their grades. So depending on the emotional level of the student, it can affect their grades because emotions do drive learning.
And do you notice any stress that your students are experiencing with grades when doing sports?
Yes, there is, like I said before in that last question, there is that emotional stress and that mental stress, simply because when you're performing academically, it's also mental as well. But when you add the physical aspect of football, which I think is maybe 80% mental as an athlete and 20% physical, that role tends to those particular two aspects tend to impact everybody overall.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Does athletics have a negative or positive effect on student academics?
I think it can have a positive effect and a negative effect. I see both ways so many times in my office, so I give the same answer often with the positive and the negative. But I see a positive because sometimes kids need that little kick in the butt to make sure they're doing well in class, so the sports holds the carrot. And then other times I've seen it where, unfortunately, sports makes it a little stressful for kids and takes away from their academics. So I think there's got to be a good balance with sports and school.
Do you notice a comparison between a difference between athletes' grades and non-athletes' grades?
No, I don't notice the difference. I think there's different variances for all students.
Okay, and do you notice any stress that students are experiencing when doing sports and being involved in activities?
Oh yeah. I notice a lot of stress in the young kids in sports nowadays, unfortunately. I think there's a lot of unrealistic expectations and hopes for kids instead of just playing the game to have fun and enjoy it while they have the opportunity to play. People are trying to be pros instead of kids.